We're joining you with breaking news from Ferguson, Missouri. Tonight, frustration still palpable. Demonstrations here and around the country, and strong reaction to Officer Darren Wilson's first public comments. That white police officer who shot and killed that black teenager, 18-year-old Michael Brown. Bitter words from Brown's mother following the grand jury's decision not to charge him. We begin with Officer Wilson in his own words, his exclusive interview with our George Stephanopoulos, saying he feared for his life that August day.
Yeah, actually it was just a normal day, and I was just patrolling my area.
Alone?
Alone, yes. We're always alone in Ferguson. Always one-man cars. I was actually on my way to go get lunch.
And you're driving to lunch, and what do you see?
I see two individuals who I later became to know as Darren Johnson and Michael Brown.
You didn't know then?
No, I did not. I saw them walking in the middle of the street, single file, on the double yellow line. I had stopped in front of them and let them walk up towards me.
But you're still in the car?
Yes, I never even put the car in park. I didn't drive. And as they walked up, I had asked Darren Johnson, who was the first one, to walk on the sidewalk. And his reply was, well, we're almost to our destination. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong with the sidewalk? And then as he passed, he just kept walking, ignoring that, is when Michael Brown came next. And he had exchanged some explicit words with me. He had said, what you have to say.
First words to you?
Yes. And when I looked at him, you know, as law enforcement, we're always trained to look at people's hands. The hands are what will hurt you. And I noticed that his right hand was full of cigarillos. And it kind of all clicked then. You know, the call I'd heard, I was in the vicinity of where they were going. Cigarillos were in his hand. Darren Johnson was wearing a black shirt. And that's when it hit me that these were the suspects from that stealing.
He was aggressive in his manner.
Yes.
You say, cigarillos in his hand. Did you have any sense that he might be armed?
I did not know. I had no idea. Got on the radio and I asked for assistance.
What happens next?
I had backed up because they had kept walking, ignored everything I had said.
You're still in the car?
I'm still in the car. I then put the car in reverse and I backed up just past them and kind of blocked the street and them off. And
so you're kind of in the middle of the street like this?
Yeah, it was like if the street's this way, my car was angled that way. Mm-hmm. It kind of blocked them from escaping, and it just kind of provided a little security for everybody. And I had gone to open the door and get out of the car. And when I did so, as I was opening the door, I said, hey, come here for a minute. And that's when he turned and said, what the are you going to do about it? And slammed my door shut on me.
Slam the door shut?
Yes.
So you're trying to get out, he slams the door shut?
Yes.
And?
Again, taken aback because I've never been trapped in my car, I used my door to try and push him back and yell at him to get back. And again, he just pushed the door shut and just stares at me.
So you're staring each other down?
Yeah, he stares at me and he's like almost over top of me. It looked like he was trying to intimidate me. And as I look back at him, all of a sudden, punches start flying.
He threw the first punch?
Yes. He threw the first one and it hit me in the left side of my face.
Because, you know, some of the witnesses have said that they saw you trying to pull him into the car.
That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer.
Didn't happen?
No, it did not.
He punched you, and did he land a punch?
Yes, he did. The first one that he hit me in this side of the face, right in this area. And then I don't know what or how many hit me after that. I just know there was a barrage of swinging and grabbing and pulling for about 10 seconds.
What's running through your head?
What provoked such an aggressive response to really nothing out of the ordinary besides a conversation? My goal when I originally tried to get out of the car was to get out and just talk with him for 30 seconds till backup arrived. And then we could investigate the stealing further. I had reached out my window of my right hand to grab onto his forearm because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was.
Hulk Hogan?
He was very large, very powerful man.
You're a pretty big guy.
Yeah, I'm above average. I'm about 210, 215, but you know, from what I've heard, he was around 290. And then as I'm holding him, I see him coming back around with his left hand, and it's in the shape like this, and it comes in through the window and just a solid punch to the right side of my face. I mean, the next thing was, how do I survive? Because I didn't know.
How do you survive?
Yes, I didn't know if I'd be able to withstand another hit like that. I mean, you hear all the time, one punch and someone gets knocked out, and if I'm knocked out, then what happens to me? Because then I can't defend myself at all. So that was my fear, is if he hits me again, will I be conscious after that hit to still defend myself?
So that's what you're thinking at that moment, I can't get hit again.
Yes.
And what do you do?
I actually went through my progression of how do I get out of this? What do I do? What's my force that I'm allowed to do? And my training just overrode everything you could ever think. I mean, training just kicked in.
What did your training do at that moment?
At first I went to mace. But if I would have used that, it would have not only disabled him if it got to him through both our sets of hands, but it would have disabled me.
So you go through the checklist, the mental checklist, you rule out mace.
Yes.
This is all happening in a split second.
Yes. And the only option I left was my firearm. So I withdrew my firearm and I
Where's your gun at that point?
I keep it on my right hip. Mm-hmm. I take it out and I come up, I point it at him.
So you're no longer holding on to his arm with your right
my
hand.
left hand is now blocking my face, and I'm now getting my firearm with my right.
Okay, so show us exactly what you did.
I was like this, and I brought my gun up like that. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a shoot me." And when he did that, he had twisted it and put it down into my hip, and I had the barrel dug into the crease of in my left hip. And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun. And at that point, I envisioned a bullet going into my leg. I thought that was the next thing.
Both your hands are on the gun at that point?
Yes. This hand's trying to just get it back, and my right hand was on like the pistol.
And his hand's over yours?
Yes, it was over top.
What do you do?
I had managed to wiggle, only a couple inches. I just slide over just slightly, and the force of him pushing down actually slid off the side of my leg, and when it slid off, it's now pointed down at the floorboard. Well, I didn't have enough strength to pull the gun up, and with just one hand, I couldn't maneuver it. So I took my left elbow and locked it into the back of my seat, and I just pushed as hard as I could like this with both my arms. And I ended up getting it to slide up my leg towards my knee, and when it got to, fully outreached, I noticed it was lined up with the silhouette of his body. And that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time.
What happened?
It didn't go off. The gun was actually being jammed by his hand on top of the firearm. I believe his finger was blocking the hammer from striking the slide. So I tried again, and again another click. And this time I'm like, this has to work, otherwise I'm going to be dead. He's going to get this gun away from me. Something's going to happen, and I'm going to be dead. So I pull a third time, and it finally goes off. It went into the door. And when it went into the door, my window had been rolled down. So the glass from the window then exploded out from the door. And when it exploded, I just remember seeing a big chunk of glass come over my hand, and I see blood on my hand. And I didn't know what it was from originally. Later I found out it was actually his blood because I wasn't cut. But after the glass flies over, I look at him, and he kind of backs up about 6 inches to a foot. And it kind of startled both of us.
That was the first time you'd ever used your gun, right?
Yes, it was.
What were you thinking?
We were both in shock. That's all. It was shocking having to pull it, but it was also at the same time it was shocking that this was the only option I had. After I look at him, he's kind of shocked. He gets even angrier. His aggression in his face, the intensity just increases. And he comes back in at me again. And when he comes back in, I just block my face again, and I put my gun up and try to shoot. Well, it doesn't shoot that time either. Now it's jammed again. Again, training just kicked in. I never even thought about this. Just your gun jams your racket, you get a new round in there. And when I did that, I wasn't looking at him. I was just like racket, expecting another hit, and I put my gun up and fired. And after I fired that shot, I look over. He's running.
It went off that time.
It did go off that time. He starts to run, and I see the dust cloud behind him, and I'm like, okay, I missed. The round didn't hit him. Then I go to exit my car. And when I'm getting out, I use my walkie, and I say, shots fired, send more cars. And I start chasing after Michael Brown.
You sent that radio message, shots fired, send no cars, but nobody got it.
No.
How come?
Found out later my radio, during all the altercation, which was down on the side, which is where my portable radio's kept, the channel was changed from 1 to 3.
That moment before the second shot, you guys are staring at each other, and you said there was a look in his eye like something you'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. You described it as a demon.
Mm-hmm. It was a very, very intense image he was presenting. I was so shocked by the whole interaction because this was escalated so quickly from a simple request to now a fight for survival. And it still doesn't make sense to me why someone would act in that way and be so mad instantly, so aggressive instantly.
And he then does run away.
Yes, he does.
How far does he go?
I don't know, around 30, 40 feet. At
that moment, you've called for help.
Yes.
Why not stay in the car? He's running away.
My job isn't to just sit and wait. I have to see where this guy goes. My goal wasn't to arrest him. My goal was to maintain visual on him. And I was worried.
You mean you weren't going to arrest him alone?
Not alone, no. I knew I had backup on the way.
And then he stops?
He does stop.